This will be the last video I upload that is in any way connected to Sonic Generations before I finally get around to reviewing the product itself, and I still have a few things I want to say about it. This game looks awesome. I still think the classic sections have some physics problems, but the level design is still great, and overall, I'm sure I'll enjoy playing as a little guy again despite these flaws. You see, it's okay to point out things that bother you in a game and still like the game, even though those hiccups are there, and not pretending they aren't. Just because I went through the trouble of talking about these things doesn't mean they flat out ruined the game for me. Like I said, though, this still looks pretty great. I especially love this portrayal of classic Sonic. I know, it's not okay to talk about how Sonic looks, but I'm going to anyway, just for a little bit. I've heard a lot of people say they find modern Sonic more appealing because they think he's more badass. But is that really so important? How does that on its own make a character likable, or special, or unique? What does that, by itself, add to a character to make them truly interesting or significant? If anything, I think that's a terrible, if not the worst reason to prefer a certain character or other. And at this point, I really do see the two Sonics as very different people, or at least as these two entities, each representing a different style and feel. I mean, just look at classic Sonic. Look at how energetic and expressive he is. That's what makes him likable. He's a cool character drawn in a deceptively cute, quirky style that makes him stand out. Modern Sonic just looks like he's overcompensating for something. It's like everyone's having this endless competition to see who can top each other's badassery and be the most badass, and some fans feel fulfillment in seeing their vision of Sonic participate in this. I'm not saying either design is bad, just that they each have their own edge, and while there was a point when I, too, preferred modern Sonic for the same reason as a lot of misguided people, I have, over time, come to see things differently. For those who still don't understand how anyone could like a silly, babyish looking character like this, I'll tell you, it isn't that we like him despite that. Him looking kiddie isn't somehow a flaw or a weakness, or anything detrimental in any way. We like him because of that! And if you can't understand this, well, you should feel bad for being so shallow. But enough about that. Now for the really important stuff. We're at a point where new footage is being leaked almost every day, and the more I see, the more I fall in love with what I see. As weird as that sounds though, classic Sonic and his 2D gameplay is little by little becoming less and less the main selling point for me. The more I see of the 3D modern sections, the more my attention is drawn to that. The modern sections of Green Hill and most of Chemical Plant look like the kind of shit you typically breeze through in most Unleashed daytime stages. However, right at the end of Chemical Plant, everything abruptly changes, and from that point on, the game gets really, really good and never stops. The dichotomy of racetrack after racetrack with teensy, barely noticeable specks of thoughtfully laid out platforming lightly sprinkled here and there has been completely reversed, flipped over. Now it's the other way around. I mean, just look at this. There's so many things to hop on and climb over and actually play around with. Look at all the clouds and the piled up debris and the rotating discs. Man, this just looks awesome. There's still occasionally a quick step section or a road to boost along, but see, it's okay because these parts no longer completely dominate the 3D gameplay. Now it's just like the classic games, where such stretches were brief and only punctuated the rest of the experience. It's still essentially a few alternate paths, but they overlap almost constantly and it doesn't feel like a few intersecting lines or a narrow claustrophobia-inducing corridor. Having all this stuff clustered together makes the 3D areas feel more open-ended and actually gives you room to breathe, a chance to explore, and actually have fun. It's all consistently fast-paced, and there's so much more depth than I ever thought could possibly be squeezed out of the Unleashed Daytime stage formula. Hell, this is the best 3D level design I've seen since Sonic Adventure 1. No, not 2, the first. I mean, look! Even the cart controls more like the bumper cars from that game, and less like the automated bobsleds from Sonic Heroes. It makes me wonder, if the minds behind this have been working on Generations for years and not just a year, could it be that Unleashed and even Colors were just filler? Something to keep people satiated and give them their Sonic fix while they work on a big name like this? You have no idea how much I appreciated Aaron Webber admitted that Sonic is about platforming first and foremost. I do hope they continue to expand upon this brilliant level design. What has me even more excited though is seeing how others are reacting to this. See, I've heard a lot of new schoolers make it clear over the years that they want nothing more than to mindlessly plow down a never-ending trek and not be interrupted by any genuinely inspired gameplay. So naturally, I figured these same people would hate having to clamor over all this 3D platforming. I thought this approach would ruin Generations for them. But no! These people, somehow, are actually praising this design just like I am. They say it's a perfect compromise between the 3D gameplay of old and new. They actually like this. And this really is great, because this just might ultimately finally send a message to Sega that this is what we want from now on. This is what I have been asking for throughout most of my reviews, and I'm so psyched to finally be getting it! So yeah, that's all I have to say until I get this game and finally review it. I know a lot of you are waiting for this, waiting for me to review it. It'll be like my ultimate video. But then there's a problem. And now we move on to the topic the title of this video refers to. People on YouTube love my reviews, particularly of Sonic games. So naturally, they're waiting for me to review Sonic Generations shortly after it is released. I had planned to do that, but now, you know these playing with fire skits I've been doing recently? Well, people are starting to catch on to these, and I decided to follow this story up with an adaptation of the Savage Planet line. I have guys like Edict Arts and BioRock Dude ready to lend me their voices. I've already bought all 6 3.0 heroes, Witch Doctor, and have a story in the works. But here's a problem. As you know, we are nearing the end of the year. Fall is at our feet, and the green is rapidly fading away, which works out great for my story. If I can just get some good footage with the figures I already have while the trees are still as lush and green as they are right now for the beginning of the story, and even then I need to hurry with that. As fall sinks in, the later scenes will make it appear as though the surrounding environment is actually dying. As things get brown and dry, it'll fit the story. But the problem is I don't have enough money to get the villains or the other Titan sets. However, I will have enough money in November. Problem is, I was saving most of that for Sonic Generations. So now hopefully you get the picture. Come November, I will either get the remaining Savage Planet sets I need for my story to turn out well, or the Sonic game people have waited for me to talk about for ages. If I get the Hero Factory sets, I'll have to put off my Generations review for at least a month, maybe even until Christmas. But if I get Sonic Generations, and this whole production is screwed up, I may have to put this project on hold for a whole year until next fall. So I'm having trouble deciding what I should do. Which do you guys want me to do more? More skits or more Sonic? Would you be willing to wait a while for my Sonic Generations review, or am I only ever allowed to make videos about Sonic?